Good. Right, I got it. She's good. You get the night off, babe. All right. Perfect. Welcome, welcome. Happy New Year, guys. Very excited. So tonight I've got on my other phone. Don't ask me for this phone number. This is how I hide sometimes. So I have tonight, one of my favorite of the 11 laws is the law of thinking. It is what radically changed my life when I learned about as a man thinketh, so is he. And I want you to all be gentle with yourselves. Some of you are just learning this stuff at whatever age in life you are, whatever decade you're in. And I want you to come at this with a place of gratitude that at least you're getting this wisdom, right? It is such a beautiful place to be, to have an understanding when you start having an understanding, or what I call a revelation. I had a revelation in my early 30s when it was brought to me, the information was given to me that I had the power to choose my thoughts, that I had control over what was going round and round in my head, that those tormenting thoughts and those things I had been thinking for years, that I actually could change those thoughts. It was a foreign concept to me. I had never been mentored. I didn't understand, right? You don't know because you don't know. And then once you're given the opportunity to have what we call wisdom, it can create a revelation. But just because you have a revelation doesn't mean your life changes. You then have to harness what you've learned and put it into action. And so I am very excited about this, because the law of thinking is something that if this is all you get, if this is all you learn from me this year, and you take this and run with it, you're going to see a 2023 like no other. You're going to see acceleration. I call it supernatural acceleration. You're going to see things divinely come together in your life because you're using and you're harnessing this law. That's why it's called working with the law. Most of us work against the universal laws, but when you work with the law, especially the law of thinking, you can actually create a really beautiful tomorrow based on what you're thinking and speaking today. So let me give you some of it. So it says on page 13, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not what you just consciously think, but what have you in your heart of hearts? What do you believe as truth? You have to actually believe it as truth in order for it to take root. So it says, to the average person, life is just a deep mystery, and I'm paraphrasing, a complex, incomprehensible problem. But it's an actual simple thing, life is, if you hold the key to it, right? And so mystery is only another name for ignorance, for all things are mysteries when they are not understood. But when we understand life, it no longer appears mysterious. I used to be that person thinking, it's just always going to be hard. I was dealt a bad hand. I had these false mindsets and beliefs that this is just the way it is. This is how life's going to be. And it says here, man is a progressive being, a creature of constant growth, before whom lies an ocean of progress to be navigated and conquered only by development and culture of his inherent powers. You are limitless. Most of you have not tapped into it yet, or some of you have. But many people around you, people you'll introduce to Awakened, have never really learned the power of thought and the power of words. Words are containers for power, as Joyce Meyer once said, and I was blown away by what she said. They hold power. You can shift an atmosphere with your words. I can look at all of you tonight and say, you are loved, you are special, you are enough. And some of you will be brought to tears just from me making eye contact on a camera, through the internet, looking at you and saying, Esther Sue, you are more than loved. You are a beautiful human being. And that literally can wreck someone right through the internet. Why? Because words are containers for power. Linda Liddell, I know you. You are a beautiful person inside and out. Look at her face, changed completely. When my husband turns to me and says, you've always been enough. You're more than enough, Danielle. I still physically feel a shift. Physiologically, I feel a shift. I feel lighter. I feel happier, because I need words. Everyone needs to feel significant. Okay. So it's okay, Crystal. She goes, her house is a nut show. She has no idea what my house was 5 minutes ago too. Hank and Kathleen kissing each other. You guys are super sweet. I love that. Let me tell you something that wrecked me this week. And I'm going to give you another demonstration of words, but also nonverbals. So we were at our formulator's office in California, the people who formulated Zenith and are formulating other products for us. And one of the formulators was at the table. I didn't know he was observing me and Scott. He doesn't know much about us. He just knows, we're owners. The other day after Jim and I did the call, Jim said, I just wanted you to know I was watching you and your husband at the boardroom table. And I kind of took me a minute. What does he mean? And he said, the love between the two of you and how you guys interacted was beautiful to watch. And that got me. Another person from our staff who was there that day, didn't say something that day. The day prior, we were at our Utah office and he goes, you two are too much. And we're like, too much what? Like, I think we held hands for a little bit. I don't know. I rubbed his back a couple times. We laughed a little bit. Like, to me, that's normal, right? But understand, it creates an atmosphere. People sense, they feel, they see. Nonverbal communication is powerful. But let me tell you what's even more powerful than nonverbal. It's what you're saying to yourself about yourself daily. And it's what you're allowing into your ears and your eyes that's going to ultimately harness or cause the law of thinking to actually bring more destruction, more chaos, more stress to your life. So let me keep going, because this is my jam. This is what I love to teach. This is what's going to give a lot of you a breakthrough. We are prone to believe more than what we see. Okay, so that means our senses come into play as well. Mental attitudes are the result of ideas, and these have their origin in points of view. Therefore, by seeking true and natural points of view, you might secure the best and most superior ideas. Okay, but what does that really mean in a nutshell? I'm going to give you basically what a ruling mental state means. Here it is. A ruling state of mind. So write that down. A ruling state of mind. That's what's ruling you now. It's what's controlling you, is whatever state of mind you've allowed to be cultivated. You do have power over it, by the way. Just because your teacher in second grade said you were going to turn out to be nothing does not mean that today you don't have the power to say that is not true. I do not believe that. I do not receive that. I am smart. I am powerful. I am strong. I am limitless. You can undo the word curses, as they call them, or the negative things that have been spoken over you that have held you back in life. Some of you believe you're not good looking enough. You're not small enough. You're not big enough. You're not tall enough. You're not this enough. Everything is set, though, on what our predisposition, what we're predisposed to believe. How do we know what we're predisposed to believe? Because we've been programmed. Your job right now in Awakened is to learn how to deprogram yourself from the things that are limiting you. And your thinking is where it starts first. If you don't have a good, happy, healthy heart and you hold on to anger, rage, all that, we've talked about the law of forgiveness. We're going to get into that again. Today, I'm specifically speaking about your mind and what you let run rampant. Does this make sense? And this is Raymond Hollowell's book, yes, from Working with the Law. It says, the ruling state of mind is made up of various mental attitudes which the individual adopts towards things, towards events, and towards life in general. If his attitudes are broad in mind, optimistic in tone, and true to life, his predominant mental state will correspond and exhibit a highly constructive and progressive tendency. As almost all the forces of the personality function through the conscious mind in one way or the other, okay, stay with me. I'm going to totally paraphrase this. It says, and as the daily mental and physical acts are largely controlled by the conscious mind, that's what you can know you're thinking on. And it is obvious that the leading mental state will determine the direction in which the powers of the individual are to proceed. Meaning what you're consciously letting go into your brain, not unconsciously, not subconsciously. I'm talking about what you're consciously letting run through your mind. Is it everyone's annoying? No one knows how to drive. I'm going to give you some fun ones that should make you guys laugh. Everyone on the road is an idiot. Nobody knows how to park right. I mean, literally. No one's nice in Connecticut. Here's me. This used to be me. Everyone in Connecticut is rude. I like people down south better. They're much friendlier. That's actually ruling my mind. It's not a healthy thing for me to think. Most people in the Northeast are very, very unfriendly. Well, I might be stating what I believe to be a fact, but there's a lot of beautiful people here. And I started realizing I was programming myself, right? And not a good way. That's a conscious thought that was ruling me. So stay with me. It says, Mental attitudes are the result of ideas. Oh, I already said that. Sorry. If his ruling mental state is upward bound, it's aspiring, harmonious, and positive, all his forces will be directed into constructive channels. But if a state of mind is downward in tendency, discordant and negative, then almost all of the forces are misdirected. It is evident, therefore, that all the factors which regulate the life and experience of a man, none perhaps exercise a greater influence than the ruling state of mind. Let me give it to you in a nutshell before I jump forward. You becoming highly cognizant of what you're thinking and then speaking is going to have a greater effect on 2023 than you signing 50 new people up on Zenith. Facts. And if you think the opposite, you're dead wrong. Here's why. Because money isn't going to, and success isn't going to bring you the kind of peace and joy and fulfillment that having a mind that is set on good things, a mind that is set on, think on these things that are good. And it's not easy. We live in a negative world where the news is negative. Shut the news off. Social media, get rid of the people on your social media that are negative. You are allowing that into your newsfeed. Well, if I unfriend Margaret at church, even though she's cranky, she'll get mad at me. Then you can do what we call unfollow. She'll never know you unfollowed her. I bet you I got a boatload of people who've unfollowed me and never unfriended me. You know why? Because I speak a lot of truth. And maybe they're not ready to change their life. That's okay. Unfollow me. You can unfriend me. You can block me. But I'm still going to make sure that my news feed isn't full of the kind of things that's going to set me back in my ruling state of mind. Does this make sense so far? Your ruling state of mind is going to determine a lot, including how much money you earn, how fulfilled you are, how your relationships run. Do they run you, or do you run your relationships? Or do you know how to set boundaries? There are so many important things with the law of thinking that really matter. So here's one. It says, okay, 1 second. Thought is a subtle element. Although it is invisible to the physical sight, it's an actual force. This is what we're talking about, thoughts. And it's an actual substance, as real as electricity, light, heat, water, or even stone. We are surrounded by a vast ocean of thought through which our thoughts pass like currents of electricity or tiny streaks of light or musical waves. You can flash your thoughts from pole to pole completely around the world many times in less than a single second. Scientists tell us that thought is compared with the speed of light. They tell us our thoughts can travel at the rate of 186,000 miles per second. It goes on saying thought is an unlimited force. Your power to think is inexhaustible. Yet there is not 1 in 1,000 who may be fully aware of the possibilities of his thought power. We are mere babes in handling it. As we grow in an understanding and in the right use of thought, we will learn to banish our ills to establish good in every form we may desire. There's so much more to this chapter, but here's what I want to share with you tonight. As you start 2023, what's a better teaching than to talk about getting control of your thought life, getting your thoughts to be in alignment with what you'd like to see happen. One of the things I can tell you that I've encountered more in my life at my trainings, I've done workshops, seminars, I've spoken all over the world, and the majority of people, the number one thing that I see is lack of self-worth, not being good enough. I have to tell you, I am 16 years into teaching and training and learning this stuff. I still am very coachable. I read anything I can about it. I still have my days where I need to be reminded that I'm good enough. So that clearly should demonstrate to you, loves, that it's not about how much money you make. It's not about who you're sleeping next to at night. It's not how cute your dog is or how big your car is or even how fast your car is. Because I've had none of that. I've had all of that. And I'll tell you what it comes down to. Do you coach yourself and love yourself? Do you accept who you are? Do you know and believe that you are loved and you're good enough? And I'll tell you, when I teach this stuff, people get hammered with tests. So I had a big test a couple weeks ago. Somebody who I'm near and dear to did something that hurt my feelings deeply. I shared this on one of my calls. I'll share it again. And even though I said it right. And I said, you really hurt me. I know you didn't mean to. And I told the person, I know your intentions were good, but wow, your decision really hurt me. Instead of the person saying sorry, they made every excuse and hung up on me. By the way, I didn't deliver it in anger. They just didn't want to hear it. Oh, I'm not wrong. Oh, you should get over it. That kind of attitude. Imagine how I, who studied this for 16 years and who lives it, had to put into action my own, Danielle, you are loved, you are safe. It hurts. I cried. I'm not a big crier, but I'm learning to cry more and not stuff down or use anger. Still working on it. The old me would have gotten really PO'd and told the person where to go. Praise God, I don't do that anymore. Sometimes I fantasize about what I'd like to say, but I don't open my mouth because I know it's not productive. Angie's laughing. I'm just being real. I'd rather you learn from someone who's been there. Don't ever take anything, any type of training from someone who hasn't lived it, right? So for me, hearing that and having been treated like that, I then wrote a little text and said, I don't think it was nice for you to hang up. Well, I said I was going to hang up. No, we didn't agree to hang up. You just said I'm hanging up now and you hung up on me. So I consider that hanging up. I said it was disrespectful. And quite frankly, if we want to have a healthy relationship, there has to be an understanding. You may not agree and you may not want to. Oh, I'll apologize. Fine, I'll apologize. I said, no, I don't want that kind of apology. I'm just letting you know for future reference because I love you and I care about this. I just want you to never do that again because it was really hurtful. Guys, you may never get the I'm sorry. You may never get them to see that they hurt you. But one thing you're going to have to learn to do, which is really difficult, and this is where the law of thinking comes in, you're going to have to self-soothe. That meant I had a little talk with God, right? That's for me. That's my thing. And I breathed through it and I let the tears flow and I sobbed on the couch. I didn't cry all out, I just sobbed. My husband put his head on my shoulder and he goes, I'm proud of you because this is the opposite of what you would have normally done. Normally I would have just PO'd, right? Who do they think? Why wouldn't they? And this is what they've done to me my whole life. And it's like, where does that go? But processing it, thinking on it, allowing myself to feel it meant what? That I wasn't going to let it have power over me. Crying about something or sharing how you feel in a healthy fashion is far greater than grabbing a glass of wine, smoking a cigarette. I don't know. Some people smoke pot. Some people use anger. Some people hit things. Some people go abuse people with their mouth because they're mad about something that happened to them. I could list a whole bunch of unhealthy coping skills. Can we all agree there are certain things in our lives we just didn't learn to cope at a young age the right way? But in the law of thinking, if you really use this year and you start to do this, I am loved, I am strong, I am limitless, I am powerful. You start coaching yourself in your mind first. What's going to start coming out of your mouth will be in accordance. Thank you, Krista. Will be in accordance with what you're thinking. There's a scripture on it about out of the mouth speaks the heart. Whatever's coming out of your mouth is coming out of your heart. And who just sent me a video the other day? It was powerful. It said there are 40,000 known cells in the heart that are not connected to our mind. They have nothing to do with our brain, but they actually have their own brain. Did you guys know that? I put the video up on my story and someone sent it to me from TikTok. There are 40,000 cells that have been mapped out in the heart that actually have their own brain. So that means if you're dealing with something intellectually, but you're not working on what's hurting your heart, it's still going to store that pain and that suffering there. It's powerful. That got me. I love science. I'm like a little geek with that stuff. Like I love things that prove out. Like, so now that I know that there are cells specifically in my heart that remember things, even if I've negotiated in my brain that I'm okay, I'm always going to be, hey, Danielle, make sure your heart's okay. And that meant, yeah, I'm going to have to cry it out. Can't always be the tough Italian chick. I got to cry this out. This hurts. This made me feel invalidated. The situation made me feel like they didn't care about me. They only cared about themselves. And then to be hung up on because they didn't want to hear the truth was a whole nother level of narcissism that I wasn't ready to deal with that night. What I wanted to hear was, oh my God, you're right. That was a bad move. I don't know why I did that, but I'm so glad that you know it came from a good heart, that I wasn't doing it. I even said to the person, I know it wasn't intentional, but it was not a smart thing what you did, and I'm hurt. So I'm thinking I'm using my words like a good girl, right? Not coming at him like a ninja, not all mad, not all hot-headed Italian. And I still didn't get what I was looking for. And you know what that taught me? Same thing I've been taught over and over. You're never going to control how they're going to react, but you can only control your response to it. And you got to make sure you soothe yourself in a healthy fashion, and you align your thinking with the things that you know are going to bring and produce good fruit in your life. If you're seeing a lot of bad fruit in your life, if you're seeing a lot of conflict, if you're seeing a lot of junk, always go back and go, how am I reacting to the stuff around me? When you enter network marketing, you enter an arena of lots of different people who think a lot of different things and have all different levels of emotional maturity. And I can tell you, after 13 years of this and having almost 1 million people collectively in my downline, I've seen it all. I'm sure I'm going to see more. But I've learned this, just to love people where they're at, help them grow. If you personally develop yourself in Awaken, and you help people plug in and personally develop themselves, you're going to see more production, more units of product moving, because they're becoming validated, they're becoming stronger, their mind is becoming more resilient. They're not getting walked over, pushed over, their emotions aren't all over the ground, and they start to become really, really, really powerful human beings, because it's already there in you. I don't know you, Margie. I don't think I know you yet. But Margie, you're already a powerful human being, but you're also a person who's a collection of all these different experiences, and some of them are wounds and some of them are traumas, right? Most of us speak from a place of our woundedness, our traumas. And I'm not saying Margie has any of that. I'm just saying we are a collection of the things that happen to us, but we have to then do what? We're ultimately responsible for how we look at it, how we think about it, right? Does Margie, I don't know, does Margie think she's a worthwhile, great human being? Then she's far ahead of most of the people that I've trained in my life and coached. Most people come to me, they don't even think they're good enough in their 40s, 50s, 60s, think there's something that nobody really cares about them. That's what breaks my heart. But then I go, wait, that used to be me. There's hope, right? There's so much potential in every single human being. They wouldn't be here. I believe that. You would not be breathing right now if you didn't have potential and you didn't have a job to do. But your first job is to make sure your thinking is alignment with good, with abundance. Let's talk poverty mindset thinking. Does everyone know what that is? Poverty mindset is lack, poverty, not enough to go around. It's words like this. We can't afford that. Stop saying that. I'm going to just break it out of you tonight. Stop saying we can't afford things. Stop saying, yeah, we're not those people. We'll never have that. Stop saying, I'll never get that, or I'm too broke. We don't have enough money for that. We can't eat there. That's too expensive. Those words actually carry power. I'm not saying go around saying, we're rich, spend all the money in the account. Did not say that. Please, God, don't text me later and say you're getting a divorce because of what Danielle said. What I'm saying is an abundance mindset will cancel out the poverty and lack mindset. I shifted over. I was raised, it's not their fault. I was raised by people who were raised by people for generations who were poor, who grew up on food stamps. My grandparents, my mother's parents met in an orphanage. You want to talk about poverty? They fell in love in an orphanage. Never knew their parents. The amount of abandonment issues and rejection issues from my bloodline are big. Why? Because I had a grandmother and a grandfather who, although they were together for 67 years, as they met very young and they got married young, they believed that they were worth nothing because they were given up into an orphanage. Imagine that. And you want to know what that's called? That's called generational stuff. Generational curses, they call it, or generational beliefs. We pass down these beliefs that cause limited thinking in our children and our grandchildren, right? Does this make sense? What have you been told in your family line? I want you to put some chat in here. What have you been told that you believe? Because there is a little analogy that I love. And some of you know this story, right? You put it in the chat while I teach you this. So there's a story of the mom and the granddaughter and the grandma. So the grandmother, the daughter, and the granddaughter all cooking at Christmas. Okay. And the mom, so that'd be me with my mom and my daughter, I cut the end of the roast off and put it in the pan. And then my daughter gets married and she's cooking at Christmas 10 years later, and she cuts the end of the roast off and puts it in the pan. And then the new kid is born, my grandkid, and the grandkid goes to her mom, which is my daughter, why are you cutting the edge of why are you cutting the part of the roast off? Well, that's how it's always been done. Well, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know, just do it. That's the way my mom, meaning me, taught. Well, that's the way my mother taught me. Well, that's the way my grandmother taught my mother. Does anyone know this story? I see Angie shaking her head, Kathleen. You come to find out when you dig back when they were super poor, they didn't have a pan big enough for the roast, so they cut it off. So all these years, if not decades, everyone's cutting the end of the roast off because they think that's how it has to be done. And so there are things you have to accept that you've learned that are not serving you well. It's the story about the small pan. Thank you. I want you to understand something. The law of thinking, if you harness your thoughts this year and you start to use them to your advantage and you dig in deep with me, not only will money flow, I'm not guaranteeing you'll be a millionaire. It's not what I'm saying. Money will flow. You'll have less of a block with money. You have less of an issue with debt and lack. You'll start seeing things in a different fashion. And all of a sudden, you'll start to do what it says right here in the law of thinking. And I'm going to pull it up. Give me a second. It says, if we take the thought of success and keep it in mind, the thought elements will be attracted, for like attracts like. We are mentally drawn to the universal thought currents of success. And these thought currents of success are existent all around us. We will be able to literally bring success into our life. I am living proof of that. I was a train wreck. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, sorry. So I am living proof that you can go from a very diseased mindset. That's called Working with the Law. I don't know who that is. It just says iPhone. Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. So I'm going to go through each chapter with you as the weeks go on, so you really harness these concepts. But I have to tell you, you have to understand that what you're thinking on or what you have been taught, some of it is serving you well and some of it is serving you terribly. And you're holding on to these false mindsets. So our job this year is work collectively together to become cognizant of what are the things that I believe, right? What are the things I believe that are holding me back? I've had people say to me, I'm just not, I'm not smart enough. Or here's one I hear all the time. It's too late. I'm too old. I've made too many mistakes. I can't start over now. Lies, all lies. We call those, Dr. Phil calls those why lies. It's why you're lying to yourself. It's why you think you can't make progress or you think you can't do something big with your life. Does this make sense? And so I need you to understand that the law of thinking, the reason why it's the first chapter, right? Letty said, oh, it's a man's world. You can't because it's a man's world. You're looking at someone who, this industry, the majority of C-level and officers and executives and owners of network marketing companies, there's 10,000 of them. 10,000 of them right now actively, right? Globally. How many are women? Then ask me how many are women that used to be in the field? Not even, like, probably less than 1%. And here I am. And they came at me like nobody's business. They wanted to burn me at the stake. And I'm like, here I am. And you know what? If I hadn't learned all these lessons and been through all this tough stuff in my life, this would have taken me out like that. You want to know why some of you haven't been taken out yet? Because you've learned so many lessons that when things happen, you're so battle hardened. You so believe in yourself now that nothing's stopping you from getting to the top of Awakened or any other company that you want to be in. I'm not going to just say Awakened. Let's take that out of it. No self-serving here. I'm going to say you can go to any company and succeed because you are absolutely in the know, and you know beyond know you are good enough. I can't tell you. I can look at you, Amanda, and say you're good enough. And we don't know each other yet, Amanda Fedison. I can tell you from female to female that I love you and you're beautiful and you're worthy. But until the day you believe it enough to the point where it sticks, that's when the magic takes place. But see, the people who've been molested, raped, verbally abused, rejected, abandoned, all that stuff does this. It piles on. And then all of a sudden, we don't even know how to get where we want to go because we can't even believe it anymore. Am I? Because these three things wouldn't have happened, or that dad wouldn't have abandoned me, or my mom would have been a good mom. There's so many reasons why people hold themselves back. But believe me when I tell you, a shift in thinking will shift your entire life in ways you've never imagined. And it's that type of daily exposure to good thoughts, and it's a job. And it's a job, but the everyday working just a little, 15 minutes a day, you are going to radically transform this. What's crazy is I was thinking about the other day, I'm like, holy cow, 16 years of this, because I've been in the industry 13. I was doing this 3 years before I got in the industry. Why do you think I came in and broke a record in Rodney's first company? That's our CEO. I broke a record in his company. He forgot the other day, he said, Danielle did it in 10 weeks. I did it in 8 weeks, Rodney. A woman had 16 weeks to diamond. I came in and did 8 weeks to diamond. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never been in network marketing. I was $750,000 in debt. I was losing my home. I had very little mindset training for 3 years, but enough, right? And I look back and I go, had I not started working on my mindset prior to getting in that company, would have never broken that record and would have never made the money I did. I can promise you that. You know why? Because every day in that business, I remember me saying this. I don't know how I'm getting to the top. I don't know how I'm getting out all this debt, but I know it's going to happen for me and I'm not stopping. I know people are going to say no. I know there's people are going to say yes. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to be coachable and I'm going to dig deep because I have no other choice. If I don't, I have to go back to being in debt, not being able to feed my kids, maybe lose my car, maybe lose my home. And I don't accept that. So therefore, I'm just going to go in and believe that this is meant for me and I'm going to bloom where I'm planted and I'm not stopping. I'm getting to the top. I don't know how, but I heard I don't have to know how, but I got to know I'm getting there. And I literally coached myself in that company and people would stand waiting for me to get off stage. Guys, it's still weird for me when people want to talk to me and hug me after stage. Like I'm just Danielle. But my husband always says, he goes, if they knew you at home, they'd know you really don't think of yourself like some rocks. I really don't. I think I know good stuff and I want to share it with you, but I don't walk around going, I'm Danielle Mioli, like serve me. But I get people come off stage. I come off stage and they go, oh, I can't, I'm so happy to meet you. You changed my life. And I'm going, I did? Well, your story and you inspire me. And that's when I finally knew what I wanted to do with my life. I can help other people get out of a pit by getting myself out of my own, and I can make money, like doing what I love. Suzanne Summers said it best. This is why I love her. She said, find what you love and make it, monetize it, meaning make it make you money. So you mean I could just stand on stage or get on a Zoom and teach people how to get out of their own way, get them to start winning in life, and I'll actually make money doing it? Better money than when I worked 9 to 5 and I had to deal with bosses and traffic and exhaust and tires needing to be replaced and oil change. I can do that from home. Sign me up. But it meant every day I worked on myself, knowing that the better I became, the more I healed myself, the more I got rid of that, the more I got my thinking right, the more I would be able to fill my plate and then go fill a bunch of other plates. That's what you're doing in network marketing. Don't let anyone fool you. The product side and the service side is really not what we're about. Our industry is a personal development business with some products or services included. If you work on you and then you go teach other people how to work on them, they will develop to a level where they drop their mindset of negativity. They stop focusing on criticizing themselves and others. They see the abundance. People walk around me and they're like, this is what I do in the airport. Oh, there's a sea of people who do not know about Zenith yet. Look, and Scott, my husband, construction engineer, most closed-minded guy as far as like personal development until a few years prior to us reconnecting. You know what he says now when we walk through airports and stuff? He goes, these are all people who could potentially come into the company and be changed. I love that he sees that now. You know how I know he has an abundance mindset now? Because he says that to me before I even remember to say it. We'll be at a mall and he goes, there's a sea of prospects here. That's how you know someone shifted. Instead, it's, I don't even know I'd get all these people's phone number. That's a poverty mindset. None of these people want to know, they're all broke. That's a poverty mindset. Does all this make sense? You'll know you've shifted when you're driving down the road and you go, there's 72 houses in this development. I bet you only 2 people know about Zenith. Bet you only 2 people here know about Awakened. Man, oh man, my team's going to gobble up the whole market. When you start walking around saying what I said in my last company, which was this, I'm going to talk to more people with my team faster than anyone else, and I'm going to lead the company. Guess what? It was hard, but it happened. And one day I woke up and my sponsor called me and he goes, you little crap. And that's not the word he used. He goes, you just surpassed me in income. I said, stop being lazy, buddy. You're part-time. I'm full-time. He goes, there's no one I'd rather have surpass me. And instead of being called the #1 female earner, I was then called the #1 earner at that company. And you know what? It had nothing to do with beating everyone else or making it past people. It was that I proved to myself that the girl who grew up on government cheese, food stamps, consignment clothes, a broken home, raped at 16, never really had a dad around. He was a raging alcoholic. The family was a mess. My mom trying, just thank God my mom instilled faith in us, and that she pushed us to, she always taught me to persevere, but no one knew how to get out of their own way. And that girl got out of her own way. No one was picking me up. No one was coming to save me. And I'll tell you this because people don't want to hear it, but you need to hear it. No one's going to build your business for you. No one's going to help you get out of your mental rut. Well, I shouldn't say help. No one's going to do it for you, but we can help you. We can give you the tools. We can give you the knowledge. But it took me doing what I knew I had to do, which was pick up my mat and go. Don't sit in it, Danielle. You can continue to hate how you were raised. You can hate that you had a broken home. You can sit around feeling like a victim. And boy, was I a champ of being a victim. Or I could drop the victimhood. I can drop it and I could go, it's not how I started in life. It's how I finish. I teach my kids. It's a famous saying in the Mioli household. We say it to all 6 of our kids. It's not how you start. It's how you finish. Finish strong, baby. I could cry thinking about it. I don't care how you started. Neither should you. Finish strong. Leave a legacy. Break the generational curses. Stop the madness in your head. You have power. You have so much inherent power. You have no idea. But it takes discipline daily. And yes, 16 years in, I have my moments, but I am so much further ahead than I used to be. I'm not looking for you to be perfect. I'm not looking to be perfect. We're looking to be better because we know better, we do better. And this year, 2023 can be super powerful for you if you start implementing new thoughts. That's it. And see, everyone's saying all these things, but let's talk about the real part of it, because I'm going to go in here. Thank you, Susan. Recognize your negative thoughts, reject them, which is delete, cancel, and replace it with the positive thought or a scripture. And Susan, I don't know which Susan that is, but man, that's spot on. Spot on. Judy, oh, you're going to make me cry. Judy wrote a direct message. I won't read it because it's personal. Love you, Judy. And I'll be praying for him. Let me know what his name is. So does this stuff make sense to you? Because I could preach it all day. And if it's just going to hit your mind and like it's going to bounce off of you, 2024, next year, you'll be going, oh, I wish I started in 2023. Listen, there's stuff I did not want to face. There's stuff I didn't want to talk about. Sure. I've learned though, and this is another Joyce Meyer thing, if you want to get over something, you have to go through it, not around it. If you want to get over something, you got to go through it, not around it. I didn't talk about my rape for like 2 decades. I told 2 people right after it happened, and I didn't bring it up again for a very long time because that was the thing I stuffed way down. That ugliness sat really low in my gut, and I just left it there because that was not something I was ready to handle. You want to know how it manifested in my life? We just talked about it on New Year's Eve with my best friend and her husband. It manifested in me having fear, beyond fear of closed spaces. Anytime I was in an elevator with a man or in a closed room. When I worked in the hotel industry, I had to do a lot of touring. I was a corporate sales manager at a luxury hotel for 6 years. And I would have to go in. It could have been a 90-year-old man with a cane. And if the doors closed and we were alone, I would have a physiological reaction, because when I was raped, it was in a very small car, right? And I was attacked in that car, and that's where it happened. So my cells remembered that. I wasn't trying to think about it 20 years later. I would have a physiological, like almost like a panic. And then when I'd be in a room and I'd have to show them a guest room, here are our king size, here are our water views, here's what your company, when they come here, here's what the room selection, here's the suites. If the door shut, even with the thing, where you block the door from closing, I would still feel this rising panic. And then what I realized was, I'm married all these years later. That happened when I was 16. Now I'm married at 31, and I have to go get my gun license because I have terror about when my husband's on the job. I have a delivery guy or someone fixing something in the house. I have to have a loaded gun in a drawer. You want to talk about something controlling me? Ask me what set me free. Ask me why I don't have to. I am a licensed gun owner for my own protection if I ever need it, but I don't touch guns. I don't like guns. But you want to know something? What set me free? I have no problem being in an enclosed space with a man anymore. I have no problem. If someone's in the house, I'm still smart. I'm not like, hey, you're still a stranger. We had a guy putting a treadmill in upstairs recently. I said, Scott, you go, you're home. I don't need to be in that room with him. I'm not saying be dumb, but why is my physiological reaction gone? Why do I feel safe? Because I changed my mind. And how did I change my mind? I said, Danielle, you're safe. Danielle, you're okay. Danielle, it's irrational. And you're going to have to do some work with a counselor. If you can't do it yourself, go do it with a counselor. I sat down with a counselor. Do you know what she said to me? She goes, you do all this coaching of everyone. If you coached yourself on this? And I went, no. She said, you could coach yourself right out of this, right? She goes, you're just reliving it every time. You're reliving it physically. She goes, terrible on your adrenals, right? She goes, you're probably tired all the time. Yup. Who's been, you don't have to say it out loud, but if you've been physically or sexually abused, some of you are still sitting in it and have physiological reactions. Am I right? To things that happened when you were little. And I could cry thinking about it for people who've been through it. Let me tell you why. Because you never really came to terms with the fact that you are safe now, that you're okay. I used to think, well, I don't think it's going to happen again, but I'm going to be ready to tear eyeballs out. So I was on high alert, as if like it's really going to happen. You set yourself up with your thinking, right? Now I have peace. And peace comes from thoughts that are focused not on what could go wrong, but on how good and safe and right things are. I actually say to myself now, you are safe, you are healthy, you are okay. God is with you. You are good. I don't need a man next to me for me to feel safe anymore. I don't need a gun in a drawer next to me for me to feel safe. I feel good. And it's the only thing that has changed is my mind. And I think for me, what I want for you guys this year is to get set free of whatever thoughts are holding you back. And it doesn't have to be something like I'm sharing. Let me tell you, that held power over me for decades. And so many of you are going to make me cry when I read the comments. The number of people who have been through these types of traumas breaks my heart. But instead of us sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves, and I'm not saying you can't grieve it, sure you should. But once I made peace, once I forgave the man, not to his face, the guy who did it, once I forgave myself, which was hard to do, and once I said to myself, you are safe and you are okay, that changed everything. And when you start to say to yourself, I am worthy of finances to be overflowing, guess what? The money shows. Most of you have a poverty mindset because you've been programmed for poverty in your bloodline. Some of you don't want to hear this. Well, guess what? There's a lot of money out there. As Danny Johnson said one day, and I didn't understand it at her conference at first. She goes, there's money everywhere. Guys, look at the floor. I'm like, there's no money, because if there was, I'd be picking it up. I went there with like $100 in a protein bar that weekend and was sitting up there going, what the heck is she talking about? She goes, there's money everywhere. I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden we're like, what is she? She's crazy. No, she was right. And I'm going to tell you today, there's money everywhere. There's enough money to feed every homeless person on this planet and buy them a house and then some. But there is a consciousness of poverty out there. You'll see it in neighborhoods. And there's a consciousness of wealth. There's a consciousness of abundance, and there's a consciousness of poverty. Which one are you in alignment with? Because there's one or the other. There's no gray. You either believe good things are coming and there's abundance everywhere and that you are safe, and that, like the Bible says, you don't have to think about where your food comes from. Do the birds, do the animals? You don't. I used to focus all the time. How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to pay for the propane? How am I going to get new tires? My husband needs new shoes. Panic, fear, right? We sit like this going, there's not enough. There's enough. And I'm not saying that because of what I earned today. I had to say this to myself before the money ever showed. You want your team to grow? I need you to get off tonight and go, I'm going to say what Danielle taught me. My team is growing all over the world. My team at Awakened is growing. I have 2 team legs and they're going nuts everywhere. They're not nuts. Let's not say nuts. We don't want to call in any nuts. We want to, I always like to throw a little joke in when I get, but we're calling in the biggest leaders, producers. We're going to have units of Zenith, and all the other products coming out this year are going to go everywhere in your group. Your group is prosperous. Your group is powerful. And I don't care if you have 2 people right now. Say it now. Speak it now. And the more you speak it, the more your subconscious mind grabs onto it. And eventually you feel that everything is flowing, and then you see the flow. It never goes the other way. I want you to know this. The flow doesn't come after you make it big. The flow comes because you spoke it big. Speak those things that are not as if they are. Romans 4:17. Another way of saying is call those things that are not as though they are, or speak it into existence. Speak life. Now, if something you say doesn't come to pass, which a lot of things I've said haven't, do you know what I say? It's because there's something better waiting for me, and it's just the way God's got it planned for me, and I'm going to trust that better's coming. If a door doesn't open, while all the doors in the halls are closed, the hall is closed, I don't go, oh gosh. I go, one door is going to open. It's going to be a better door. Ever watch Make a Deal? Let's Make a Deal. Remember the big goose egg behind the thing? I'm dating myself, right? But that whole thing would open up and there'd be a car and like a new kitchen, and then the other one would go, and it'd be like an old car that was a totally broken down car. Think about it. Are you sitting there going, nothing's happening? That way of sitting on, my team isn't growing, people are quitting. That is going to call in more of that. But when you say it's okay for him to go, a whole new crew is coming, my team's growing everywhere, we're going to launch more products, we're going to open countries together, and this thing is going to the moon. That attitude makes teams explode in the midst of problems. Life will always throw you problems, even when you make big money. So what are you going to speak? Are you going to speak what you want to see? Or are you going to speak what you're seeing? Because if you repeat what you see in reality, you're going to call more of that in. That is the law of thinking. I want to high five myself tonight. That is the law of thinking in a nutshell. All right. I'm late for the VIP call. If you're an elite member, I will see you on that page. I love you. Have a great week.